One of the things the book talks about is how important logistics is to management. So this um, figure 1.1 out of chapter 1 looks at how logistics management covers every single point of the supply chain. So how do we get raw materials to us? How do we finish goods to our customers? How do we get returns back from our customers? You can see this entire list of things within logistics. Especially now in today's world, we expect things to show up fast. You know, that it's sometimes called the Amazon effect, where Amazon guarantees things in 1 or 2 days. And so there's this expectation that all businesses should guarantee things in 1 or 2 days. And so companies that weren't equipped to do that struggled to try to gain competitive advantage against Amazon, who had really figured the logistics component out. That's one of Amazon's competitive advantages is actually their logistics and their ability to get products into customers' hands so quickly. We will talk more about logistics in chapter 5. Another thing chapter 1 talks about is different approaches to modeling supply chain management. So, how do we choose a model? The most popular model is called the SCORE model, which is short for Supply Chain Operations Reference Model. We're going to talk about the SCORE model in almost every single chapter. We're currently in version 12 of the evolutions that the model has gone through since inception. The different components of the SCORE model are plan, source, make, deliver, return, and enable. This includes all components of the customer and product transactions. Another popular model is the Forum model, which was created at Ohio State University. This is a customer relationship management model. It looks at how how companies work together within their company and with their suppliers and logistics in order to manage their supply chain. So, various societal issues impacting supply chains. Of course, there are multiple. So, one of the first things that we talk about is gross domestic product or GDP. So, gross domestic product is, of course, the amount of industry that occurs in a given country at any year. So, what are we producing, selling, etc., in our services? And that number changes from year to year. And it is a highly looked at number as part of economic stability. Because there is no single number that can really capture and measure the full impact of supply chain management across all industries, the closest that we can get to in really looking at that at a higher level is the gross domestic product. Another impact is globalization. As we become a more globalized world, as we have internet and global businesses, and it's easier to order products from multiple countries, and we can get around faster, um, that becomes more of an issue because of logistics. Obviously, when we're getting things from other countries, there is a large logistics component. And we need to make sure it gets to us safely, and we need to consider cost ramifications. We're going to talk about this in a lot of future chapters. We also have different political structures, different regulations and laws in different countries, different tax structures, different types of money or kinds of money, and then we have foreign currency translation. Sustainability. So, sustainability is talking about how we reduce our impact on the environment. So, do we move to electric vehicles? How do we reduce our carbon footprint when we look at our manufacturing and logistics? Infrastructure. So, infrastructure are things like roads, bridges. What do we need to, if we're driving huge semi trucks, we want good roads and good bridges. Um, IT infrastructure. So, who has internet? Where is their internet information? What kind of buildings do we have access to? Regulatory issues. So, regulatory issues, looking at, again, laws, regulations, taxes, security and risk. What are the theft risks? What are the environmental risks? What are the political risks? Supply chain disruptions, COVID-19, for example, hurricanes, tsunamis, semi crashes, airplane crashes, and then disaster preparedness and relief. So the next couple slides are going to go through each one of these. So first, the gross domestic product. So you can see in 2016 that supply chain logistics accounted for 7.5% of the full US gross domestic product. Logistics costs have decreased as a percentage. I think in the future we're going to see that going up as we're having supply and demand issues with logistics in a shortage of drivers available, all of the issues that we've been having at the various shipping ports because of lack of human resources available. Actually, logistics costs have gone up sometimes 500% in the last 2 years, depending on the kind of logistics that you're using. So we'll see that as we talk through various chapters about how logistics has had such an impact, especially in COVID. Globalization trends. So when we look at goods in the US that are sourced internationally. So the largest port in the US is Port Los Angeles. And this is just an example of the items that came through the Port of Los Angeles in 2016. So 200,000 automobiles, 500,000 TEUs or cargo containers of furniture. So you can see the vast amount of logistics that we're talking about. So globalizations, international responsibility. You'll see at the bottom this continuation of omni-channel commerce. So what the omni-channel is the various ways that we can integrate with a company. So that I can walk into their physical store, I can use an app on my phone, I can go to their website, I can get text messages from them. All of that creates what's called the omni-channel. Sustainability, so energy, emissions, carbon footprints. There are environmental standards for supply chain management. One listed here is the ISO 14000. We're going to talk about all of these standards and regulations in much more detail in a future chapter. Infrastructure. So it often doesn't keep up with increases in freight traffic. This talks about the Panama Canal expansion as larger ships were able to pass through it. So there's an article in Canvas under resources that's talking about the Ever Given, which got stuck in a canal for a week. It was the largest container ship ever created, and it bottomed out and got stuck in the canal, and it stopped all logistics through that canal, the highest traffic canal in the world. It stopped all logistics for over a week and caused huge disruptions in the supply chain. So I encourage you to look at that article and read more about that. Regulatory issues. um, bringing up different types of regulations, environmental laws, sustainability laws, Sarbanes-Oxley, which looks at legal and ethical issues and financial issues. So various regulatory issues that we have to follow. Security and risk. So the five general categories of risk: economic, environmental, political, societal, and technological. So, how do we mitigate those risks? Of course, cybersecurity being a huge risk right now. The number of cyber attacks are growing, and there have been in the last year some very large supply chain disruptions that we can think of that happen because of cybersecurity attacks and software being seized. One of those being the pipeline in southern US that then caused a gas shortage. And then other supply chain disruptions like COVID-19, strikes, um, shortage of specific products. So we're going on an almost 3-year shortage right now of computer chips. And that's not looking to resolve anytime soon. As people demand new cell phones and computers, and as car manufacturers use more computer technology within every single vehicle, the demand for chips has grown far beyond our ability to manufacture chips. And so every country and industry right now is struggling to: how can we build more factories? How can we develop a better supply chain? How can we improve this current shortage? Disaster preparedness and relief. So, natural disasters, tornadoes, derechos, tsunamis, pandemics, which we're just pulling out of, financial market collapses. So in 2008, when the market collapsed, that was the most recent market collapse. Power outages and blackouts. So that's another thing. There were some very significant power outages in Texas, which is where the one of the main locations of U.S. Chip manufacturing exists. And so, an already existing shortage of computer chips is then impacted by the fact that there's a power outage in two of the manufacturing area. Tennessee was another one. And then business related issues. So, customer service. If customers are happy, they buy more. If they're not happy, they go somewhere else and some other company gets our money. Human resources. Human resources, labor costs are one of the most expensive costs that every single business has. And then organizational issues. So, issues within our own organization, management, um, lots of issues we can have there. Technology, access to technology, availability of technology, and then financial aspects and metrics. And as I said, we're going to cover these things in more depth as we go through the semester.